There's what we say, and then there's what we don't. And often it's the unspoken that holds the most power. Welcome to the Unspoken Edge, a space where hidden dynamics, quiet tensions, and unacknowledged truths are named, held, and turned into grounded action. I'm Rachel Keck, coach, facilitator, and founder of Mosaic Collaborative. I work with visionary leaders who want growth that's sustainable, relational, and real. Here, we explore what's beneath the surface, the energy under leadership, the patterns, resistance, and the truth shaping how we lead and live. In every episode, we'll name what's missing, hold what's tense, and follow the thread to what's real. Because clarity creates traction. And legacy, it's not just what you leave behind, it's how you lead today. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Today, we get to have a juicy conversation with Dan Cooper. Dan Cooper and I met actually when the world was falling apart in 2020. Of course, when is the world not falling apart? And then we just recently had our first face-to-face real person in Kansas City meeting. And I felt so much alignment. I was so energized by the conversation that I wanted Dan to come on because I want to talk about some specific things that we're both passionate about and how that impacts business. So Dan, tell everybody what you want them to know about you and what you do.
Sure. So I'm the CEO of Acumen, which is a community for business owners, CEOs, and executives. And we help sharpen, challenge, and inspire them through peer advisory. So you put people in a room once a month, hang out, do personal and professional development. And we're in Kansas City, which is home base, St. Louis, Denver, and soon to be Phoenix.
So exciting. So one of the key places, I feel like what we were sort of geeking out about when we were having coffee was spiritual development. And so Acumen is, I kind of want to put quotes around faith-based. I don't want to discount it by putting quotes around it, but we were talking really about spiritual development and how spiritual development is so key to good leadership. And I want to know from your experience and your lens, when I say, I don't know if you would call it spiritual development or what spiritual development means to you.
Yeah. So let's back up and let's look at those air quotes that you put
Okay, let's do it.
around faith-based. So in this context, when you say the F word, faith,
Right.
people get all creepy. Like, so let's talk about Jesus in the front, huh?
Faith and religion have been put together.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so in the context of Acumen, we talk about it. We are business focused, right? So it's people and performance and profit and excellence and all those good things that you do matter. And then we're faith infused because why you do it and how you do it also matters. You can have some of the same outcomes, but how you do it, obviously there's a big piece of that. And so what standard do you hold yourself to? And this is not rules, right? This is relationships. And so when we integrate faith into everyday life, you got to smash those together. And what we find is that a lot of times what you grew up with or what happens on Sunday doesn't make it into that Monday to the rest of the time. So that's the spiritual development is just a part of life. And most of us are trying to live it as best we can. We have to exercise that muscle. And I think what we're talking about today is a little bit of like, how do you exercise?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like for you? Because we're all in a different spot on the journey, however that is. And so we've chosen the Jesus journey as our kind of tip of the spear when it comes to faith focus. And I think that matters.
Okay. I have a ton of things to say about what you said, but I'm going to try to keep it. I agree. When I think about spiritual development, it is it's an inner work that we do. And the outcome of that inner work, hopefully is faith. And faith to me is sort of a trust in the flow of things. So, I mean, I think people that have listened to this podcast before probably know a little bit about my spiritual journey, but I grew up super, super churched, did a whole deconstruction. So when I think about faith now, it's sort of a surrender to the flow. And that happens when we are, like you said, building the muscles internally, um, to allow that and trust that, and yes, so I'm on track with that. When you think about spirit, okay, again, I'm doing quotes. I'm putting quotes around spirit. But when you think about spirit, how do you conceptualize that?
So I think a lot of people, when they hear the word religion, religion equals rules.
Mhm.
And in my own personal spiritual development, it's when it became about relationship. So
Yeah.
we have relationships within our family, we have relationships with the world. And then I think there's this vertical relationship we have. And
Yes.
as you know, with children, if it's just a bunch of rules in your house, there's going to be trouble. And so I think when we're trying to develop ourselves is what is our relationship to God? And then for us with Jesus. And so I think that starts out for me, it started out with figuring out why am I here on earth? Like, what am I put here to do? So all of our companies have vision, mission, and values. And sometimes they are actually a part of who you are and how you go about business. And sometimes they're just stuff on a wall. And I think that goes personally as well. And so part of my development as I was going through, I would say a transition or transformation was, why am I here? And so my one liner that I came to was, I'm here, I exist to come alongside other people to help them grow. And I stopped there because it could be, I could help them grow what? Well, it could be their company. It could be just them themselves. And so that is a wonderful filter for me. And I didn't just like write that down one day. There was discernment and a lot of coming alongside. But until you go looking for working out, you have to show up. I think same thing spiritual development wise. So figure out who you are takes work.
Mhm.
And you have to show up and start asking hard questions. So yeah, I think that's the precipice. Until you know why you're here, how do you know what you're supposed to go do? Which is what we're all really good at. I'm a great doer. I crush a lot of things. I can execute really well. The being part crushes me at times.
When you were talking, I got this sense of like that purpose. So I would say my very, very simple purpose is to help one person at a time listen better to themselves.
Mm.
'Cause I feel like that's my little sliver of impact I can have that I feel like matters. But even that purpose is sort of that spirit, right? I mean, that is sort of spirit moving through us. Whatever you believe. I mean, whether you do subscribe to the set of rules that is Christianity or the set of rules that is Islam or Judaism, whatever, that's a really nice, clear point that spirit is the purpose moving through us. And
And
it's not huge, it's not a big, it's ordinary.
it is a lot of times we put too much on it.
Yeah.
Like I need to sit and with my legs crossed, in a known position in order to achieve enlightenment. And I find we are human-based creatures. So when
Mhm.
we're out in the world being the best version of ourselves, we're actually fulfilling the call that we have. Most people aren't called to go sit in a room by themselves and think. Everything happens relationship. It all ties back to this relationship thing. And so I think Christ was relational. All he did was ask people hard questions and let them decide for themselves. I think our spiritual development is asking the hard questions and then leaning into where those answers take us because it is a journey, right? You don't end up like no one is enlightened. On a scale of 1 to 10, no one is a 10 all the
Right.
time in everything.
Yeah.
You're a 1 in some things and a 10 in others.
Yeah. Well, and just the curriculum of life. The curriculum of life gives you a lot of spiritual development in itself. When you think about practices and muscle building around living a life in relationship, in purposeful relationship, what are the practices?
Yeah. So let's start with why you would want to do it. So if
Oh,
you lead a company and you're a leader, you are stewarding other people, and every person on your team is someone else's precious child. If you're at the top, right, you impact all these people. And so for you, you are stuck at whatever level you are, and your company can only grow as you are transformed. And so working on yourself actually helps your company, it helps your team and understanding who you are inside. So why you want to do this is because all these other people should go home a little better than they were the day before. And that's Pollyanna, right? nice to hear.
Ideal.
But if we work towards it, it actually does happen over time and it impacts your business, right? Retention and all these things. So why do you want to do this? It helps you, it helps your business, and it helps your team. And that's what you've been given to steward out in the world. So one is start with why. And then two, then I think there's a great book. It's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which
Oh,
actually outlines some great practices. I just talked about how not everyone's called to go sit in a room silently. And yet, I think silence is a huge part of it. We are all full of things. I can listen to a podcast, read an article, scroll social media at all days and all times. And one of the quotes was, I think it's Pascal, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And so when we still our mind and get quiet, the first thing that happens is we have to stare at ourselves and all of our things. Can we actually slow down? One of the things challenged in the book was drive in the slow lane. Don't pass anybody. Can you just drive in the worst lane? Like, what does that do to you inside? We are made and in fact get paid for efficiency and execution. And if you look at AI, guess what? There's only more of that. And now we don't even have to think real hard. And so if you put silence with a bit of the lack of hurry, I think those are two good practices to put in.
So my very first silent retreat was at the beginning of my 3-year spiritual direction. And it was just a day, one day, not even 24 hours. I don't think it was 24 hours. It was like maybe 12 hours. And I remember how productive I wanted to be in my silence. Like I had my journal and I had my reading and I had my spot picked out. Like this is where I'm going to start my silence. And it was in the cemetery. This cemetery is beautiful. Anyway, so I like had it all. I had my silence perfectly crafted, you know? And then the more I get into, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to watch the sunset. I'm going to sit and watch the sunset. Because that felt like exactly. Silence, slow. I mean, who sits and watches the sunset? And I went and sat on this concrete bench way too early. Like the sun was way too, but then I felt like I had committed to it. And so I didn't want to like break my commitment of watching the sunset. And it was so fascinating what happened to me by committing to that concrete bench. And I could feel myself, like at first I was like reading all these things about sun. And I mean, I was trying to again make it productive. And then at some point, I just like gave up. I don't know. I ran out of agenda items, but I didn't run out of commitment to sit on the concrete bench. And I like I mean, talking about spirit, like all of me sort of relaxed into the concrete bench. And I did watch the sunset and I stayed a little bit after even, which was, I don't know how long I was on that. It was probably only like an hour, but still I was like, it was more than an hour, but yeah, this idea of silence and slowness, and we each have a different way. It doesn't always look the same for everybody.
So what did you get at the end of the bench session? What came from that for you?
I would say there was peace and connection. I felt a sense, literally, I felt the hug of the wind. And then I stayed because the fireflies came out and I felt interested in watching the fireflies. And yeah, there was a sense of like deeper peace and connection.
Awe and wonder it would be words I would put with what you just said, right? Like that big, all of a sudden nature you notice. I think that's slowing down.
Yeah.
There is so much awe and wonder in the world, but we're all moving so fast and our
Right.
brains are full of so much stuff. The pullback and go silent would. So I'd layer one more thing on there, and the faith-based word is Sabbath, right? Which is this rest. It's the point was the Sabbath isn't for you, you are for the Sabbath. You are to rest, knowing that, hey, I'm not in charge of all this stuff and stuff's still gonna grow while I'm here. Me included, we've lost the ability to Sabbath. We vacation But even on our vacation, we are crushing it, right? I'm doing all the things, maybe there's a beach day, but it's not a thing. So, um, that would be maybe something else to encapsulate. What does your rest look like? As you try to also build this battery back up in here.
Yeah, to me, Sabbath, Sabbath is about relationship and trust. It's about honoring relationship, trusting the flow. And so I keep what keeps coming to mind is because it is a practice to slow down. It is a practice to be in silence. Sabbath is a ritual practice. What that creates, I want to take it to full circle to why to do this. Because what that started to create in my life as I learned to, I just, well, one, I knew myself better. I knew all my little tricks and like my little modes of operation of how I filled the space and what kept me from slowing down and when I most needed to slow down. But all of that had me paying attention to myself and others in a different way. And so when you come back around to the idea of stewardship, there's a sense that I have some responsibility, not only to myself, but to the people around me, my family, the people I employ, the people on my team, just the people I run into every day. That slowness, that gift to myself is then a gift now I can give to others. And really, literally what that's doing is calming your nervous system and all the systems in your body so that you make the best decisions and you do the best work. I mean, really.
So we are fight or flight people.
Yeah.
That's our wiring. That's who we are. And so these practices, I find a lot of people, well, I'll just talk about me. So I redline. I start out like yellow and I'm like, the red is right here. And so anything that goes wrong, it's 8,000 RPMs. And if I can continue to do my practice, I bring it down to either the top of the green into the yellows margin for all of this opportunity for chaos, which is just the way the world goes. It took a long time to figure out that I'm not in control or in charge, and that the humility to know that other people know things I don't,
Yeah.
and to trust to build something bigger. And so if you can bring that overall RPMs down, then you're just a better leader. You're also a better spouse, better parent, a better everything. But when we start up at
Consumer.
that red, yeah, sure. But and so we're in the middle of Lent right now, which is literally like trying to think about, okay, what you might remove or what you might add, right? So it's prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, which is just generosity. And so those are three practices of like, hey, when I take something away from myself, I figure things out. When I do something extra, when I pray, or I'm generous in an intentional way, those are other like actual. So we talked about like the silence part. Those are like active practices that you can do in the day, throughout the day, that are also doing the same thing.
Oh my gosh. It is so wild. We're recording this during Lent. There's no accident. No accidents with that value. I think what's so interesting, I love that you brought up the red, yellow, green piece of this. And this idea of spiritual development are these really simple practices. They're not easy practices, but they are simple ways to begin to regulate and adjust and create space. I mean, I think one of the things that I do with companies a lot of times is just simple red, yellow, green. Yeah, at the beginning of the meeting, I don't know, self-assess. Can you be honest even about red, yellow, green? I mean, that's the first part.
Yeah.
There's this whole perception of and I mean, in any space, there's this, you want to be perceived a certain way. There's kind of an inherent knowing for leaders that if you can bring this calm, steady presence, there's value in that, but there's no faking that for people.
Yes.
No.
Your team knows like your kids know. Like your kids
Yeah.
know what buttons to push. They know when you walk in the door, which version of you. So does your team. We like to fake it. So I guess that would be what's the cherry on top. And maybe I'm a little biased here. You need to be in community. So we're relational creatures. So who are the people that you're around that you can get naked around? You can talk about stuff. And as leaders, it's hard because it's lonely and you can't say all the crazy stuff in your head to your team. You can't admit to your red line. There are times you probably should. There's also times you shouldn't. So where are you getting around? Whether that is outside of work, that is within a work context. Acumen provides that. There are many opportunities to go get around people, but someone else besides your spouse needs to know you a little deeper. And most people don't take time or the energy to do that. And yet to have a place to go to then practice and say some of these crazy things in our head. And by just being around others, good things happen. Whether that's gratitude of, well, I'm not going through that, and that's awesome. Or you're learning from other people's expertise. It's a team sport. Everything we do is team, right? Your business is a team, your family is a team, but you yourself need one too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that we are so wired for connection in that way. We do really we need each other, and we need to be witnessed. I think that's the thing when you talk about community. Well, and even Sabbath is a bit about witnessing each other in our just being. I
Yeah.
mean, if we take a lot of what we're talking about feels idealistic, but it's not. I mean, it's not when you practice it, it actually brings out a lot of hard things to deal with, and it's challenging and rich. But the I mean, the true idea of Sabbath is really witnessing each other in our beingness and not doing anything, which we don't do. And I saw a clip a few years ago. It was this clip from a movie, and it had Susan Sarandon, and I still haven't watched the movie, but this guy she was dating said, "Why do you think people get married?" And she, because they're in love with each other and and she's like, "No, because you need a witness to your life. We need someone to really, truly witness us." And that is so, like, you talked about the silence and the slowness, and to truly be witnessed and seen, we want it at the deep down part of us, we want it, but it is also so incredibly vulnerable. So incredibly vulnerable.
All right. So I'll go here.
Okay.
You connect. So when I truly connect with God, when the creator of the universe sees you and you realize that you're loved and seen, there's nothing better. Yes, we all want to be seen by those around us. And I think the longing, though, is to be seen by the creator of the universe. And that is also part of the practice of how do I connect and what is my version of that? Because my version is different than yours.
Yeah. Okay, here's another little story from my own spiritual development. I realized how much doing and moving fast, like I remember having this meme of like, stop the glorification of busy. Busyness was the way that was like standard operation. And so I remember one night I was in my neighborhood, late walk at night, and I looked up at the sky, and the way the Milky Way and the stars, it looked like a big eye. Literally. Because of the work I was doing at that time and everything, I just looked at that eye, and it was like it was looking at me. And because of my own stories and gunk, it felt so uncomfortable to just have this greatness look at me. I was like hustling home because I was like, oh my God, I feel so, there's such an exposed feeling. And I think about that a lot of times for leaders. I think that leadership is such an exposing role. I mean, really, any of us going out in the world, we're exposed. People see you more than you think that they see you.
Yeah, that's right.
But especially when you are a leader of a team or an organization, and then when you layer on, I'm going to put purpose and values. So not only am I going to put myself in a position that you can see me better than somebody on the front line, I'm also going to tell you how to judge me. I'm going to put the purpose and the values up here. So now you can watch me and see if I'm living in accordance with what I'm saying is important. That is a level of putting yourself being seen that I don't think we generally think about.
So that then ties into discernment. So you have this stuff, and then every day you're challenged on, okay, every decision do I make, does it fit through this filter? One of our values in Acumen and for Acumen, not only for our company, but our teams, is freedom in the framework. Entrepreneurs need freedom. And I think in relationship-based faith and faith in general, there is a framework to live in. And yet there's this 8-lane highway to go drive on it. I think our businesses are also the same. It's an 8-lane highway. You have freedom to do whatever you want. It helps if you have a framework to stay within it, and then vision, mission, values kind of point you. And then you have to discern with all the stuff coming at you and all the execution, what is the right decision today in this particular instance? Because sometimes you should throw somebody out, fire them, and sometimes you should pay for the rehab, and those could happen within 4 months of each other. And yet it's the right decision both times. So yeah, there's a time for peace, and there's a time for war, and there's a time for everything under the sun. So yeah, it all comes together, but it does take freedom in a framework to go execute all that stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah. And freedom generally doesn't happen in the red. That in the red, it is a life and death. There's a
Yes. Yes. I'm a runner. So there's this point in the run that I can feel the needle come off the record. And then there's like you sitting on the bench feeling all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I think I'm almost back to baseline so I can become a normal person again and try this again.
Totally. I love discernment is really, really good navigation from a somewhat calm place inside.
Yes.
I love that.
Any decisions made based upon fear or and those are hard and bad decisions. The more you can create from indifference and a little bit of surrender, cool things happen. It's simple, not easy.
Totally. Anything else anything that you feel needs to be added before we wrap it up?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the challenge. So great. I heard all this stuff. I listened to all these things. That sounds like a bunch of hoity toity. Like, yeah, really? So here is a simple practice. Put 5 minutes on your phone and just put a 5-minute timer and sit in silence somewhere, just somewhere alone. Can you spend 5 minutes? Try to clear your mind. Don't think about anything. Don't try to achieve anything. Just try 5 minutes and see what happens. I think it'd be an interesting experiment for you. And because everyone's like, well, I'm going to try to do an hour. So don't try to crush it. Try 5 minutes, see what happens and see what you learn in that particular thing.
I love it. I remember when my coach suggested I sit for 5 minutes. I was like, fine. Okay. My goodness sakes. I will say a couple quick tips when you start. I love the 5 minutes, not 20. Start with 5. And sometimes just focusing your attention, it's hard to clear out. I mean, our brains are not made to stop. So sometimes just focusing on a sound or focusing your attention can be really helpful in bringing some stillness. And also my first practice when I was trying to do what you just said is I would imagine myself like on a freeway. And I would just imagine pulling my car over and getting out and crawling under the overpass and just like sitting under the overpass for just a few minutes. And that's how I started. I mean, that was the start. So
I love the visualization. I think the visualization and a framework. You built a framework so that you could then go and sit. That's super powerful.
Yes. And then be gentle with what you find. Just notice, no need to do anything with it. Just maybe make a note and let it all evolve. Okay. How can, Dan, if people they want to know you, they want to know Acumen, how does everybody find you?
Sure. AcumenImpact.com is our website. There's a bunch of resources over there that you can learn all the things. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Dan Cooper. It's pretty easy to find. There's a few of us, but look for the bald guy with a beard.
Thank you. I love this.
Good to be with you, Rachel.
Our guests bring such clarity and depth. If you want to explore more of their work, you'll find links in the show notes. And thank you, listener, for joining me on the Unspoken Edge, the place where we name what's missing so you can lead from what matters. If something resonated with you today, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. Leave a review or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're navigating unseen tensions in your leadership or culture, let's connect. You'll find me at mosaiccollaborative.com because legacy isn't a final chapter. It's what you live into, one conversation at a time.